The U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith is with us. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
We are good.
You back in D.C., by the way?
I am back in D.C. I hitched a ride with Secretary Mayorkas.
that must have been a trip there, boy. Jeez.
Interesting.
God, what do you take away from that trip?
Well, ear pods in your ears, and in about less than 2 hours, you're on the ground.
Oh, well, he didn't leave you with any bits of wisdom at all?
Not a lot of conversation.
Well,
so many flights in Atlanta, they were canceling. Mm-hmm. And then my last notice I got said I would depart Atlanta at 11:20, so I just caught a ride.
Well, you didn't have to sit together, I'm sure.
Nope.
I'm sorry?
No.
Yeah, I thought you said yeah.
Kind, very cordial.
Well, you also were in the presence of, and this was kind of unique. You were in the presence of Benny Thompson from the House delegation.
No, not on the airplane.
No. I'm talking about in Rolling Fork.
Yeah, correct.
And that was very close to where the Yazoo pumps were. Did you have a chance to talk to him anything about that?
We did not discuss the pumps. We were totally focused on the storm on Saturday and Sunday. Well, he was there Sunday.
Yeah. You did say something, and I mentioned this a little bit later on, and you were absolutely right. Just listening to some of these sound bites, and you were talking about worrying about the mental stability of certainly the kids, but I mean the parents too. This is something else as far as depression and how this plays on and how long it'll be with them.
Well, it is such an intense life moment. I mean, that is true trauma right there. When the houses that I saw, and then the gentleman that said, it was 30 seconds of the storm. Yeah. And he said after that, I could hear so many children crying. And, the sheriff's mother, Mrs. Adams, I spoke with her, and she said, everything on the slabs was no more than 3 feet tall. I mean, the debris on everything you see is no more than 3 feet tall. And she said, my daughter and I were in there, and we got out of the rubble. And I'm thinking, how did you survive that? Yeah. But just the mental anguish of, am I about to die? Her glasses were covered with leaves and mud. She could not see. And this is an elderly lady. But, she was sitting there on her slab on the driveway and looking at her house. So the mental issues here, they have to be long-lasting because it would have to affect anybody. But I'm surely concerned about the children.
Yeah. Yeah, are you worried about some of the things that the Biden administration has promised? How we're going to just make sure that they come through with this? When we had a guy from FEMA on yesterday, and they were talking about all these services, but we hope the checks are going to be in the mail.
Oh, definitely, and it was expedited pretty quickly. President Biden actually called me on Saturday, and he told me that he had just gotten on the phone with Congressman Thompson, and he said, we're going to get the money there. We're going to expedite it. And they did. And the individual assistance was also approved, which is usually really hard to get. Yeah. We usually, just wrangle that back and forth on storms. And it was approved rapidly, too. My concern is oversight. My concern is, we don't need just our friends of folks that are going to get these contracts. We need people to get down there, be serious, get the debris removed, and start the rebuild.
Yeah. So many things, turning our attention to what's going on in Washington, D.C., and there are a heck of a lot of things there. I don't even know where to start other than one of the things that concerns me is the president has been mentioning more and more lately, certainly now with the shooting in Nashville, about using executive orders. And also talking about executive orders to change some things like the fuel limitations or new restrictions. There are a lot of these things going on. Are the Republicans keeping up with this, and what can they do about them?
Well, everything he's tried to do through executive order that he can get his way. And he knows that attacking the Second Amendment right, Paul, would fail in court. But gun control bills just can't pass in the Congress, thank goodness, right now. But instead, his administration is trying to use rulemaking to implement many things. Just the backdoor gun control is what they're focusing on right now. And, for example, let me get this straight, the ATF, the stabilizing brace rule, and to reclassify firearms with a brace is a, short barrel rifle, but subject to greater federal regulation. And this rule would force law-abiding gun owners to register these firearms with the ATF or face, it's like 10 years in jail, and $1,000 a fine.
Yes.
But that's one reason that I just co-sponsored the CRA, a Congressional Review React resolution, to stop it. And that it would have to pass with a veto-proof majority to overturn. And it's just amazing the extent that they're going through to try to do that. But, I just went through and got my enhanced carry, and I qualified on the range out in Maryland with a .357 Magnum. And one of the reasons I've decided it's so expensive to get a gun permit here, they're making money off of this stuff.
Yeah.
But, it's the city. We've had quite a few incidents. Senator Rand Paul's staff was attacked in broad daylight Friday, stabbed repeatedly. I talked to Rand yesterday on the floor, and, the guy had been out of prison one day. I think he served 12 years. I'm not sure what he was charged with. But it was just, it's a racket. And then the backdoor things they're trying to do to keep you from having that or to make sure you register it is the thing. And, we're just going to fight it tooth and nail, and we're going to continue to do the Continuing Resolution Act to do what we can to stop these rules.
Senator, I mentioned a little bit earlier, it is a little frustrating out there because as far as the progressive, the being on the offense as far as the Republicans are concerned, and I know you guys have worked on this earlier, or it's been a while, as far as putting something together that enhances or at least addresses the middle situation. We had that here. This woman was psychotic. She was in the house, 28 years old. Parents knew it. And I'll agree with a lot of other people that at some point they should be held accountable for not reporting this one way or the other to the authorities.
That is so much of the issue, as we well know.
So what do we do about it as far as the mental part of this? Why can't the Republicans put something up and at least present it to the Democrats on some way that would be palatable to, the gun owners of America?
That would be a challenge to do that. Not saying that I don't want to make that effort, because I truly do. Talking with people in prison that, have done these horrific things. I've sat down with some, and, they're telling me it's the mental illness that is out there that's going untreated. And, but most schools can identify those that they think appear to have a lot of issues. And, we're going to have to make it accessible, but there's no way to 100% stop all of this. Mean people are going to be mean people, and whether they, come through with a car that doesn't even have a gun in it, there's so much. But so many times it's lack of home structure, and it's parents that aren't really involved or seeking help. And so many times mamas and daddies not being mamas and daddies is what, I have found out so much of the time. But the mental illness issue has to be addressed, some type of recognizable factors that if you meet criteria, that we possibly can reach out.
Let's talk a little bit more about this. We'll talk more about this on the other side of this one, but I've always looked at it as almost like a commercial driver's license. You cannot drive a Mack truck with just your regular license. You can't own some weapons without a little bit higher step of license to get that on some weaponry. So if you're going to a psychiatrist, should you at least have a little bit more of a check to make sure you're okay before you buy an AR? I don't think people would have a problem with that. FDIC. U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith is with me for a few more minutes here, and here's one of her colleagues.
Secretary, isn't it a fact that the president's proposed budget for next fiscal year is $500 billion more than this fiscal year?
On the spending side?
Yes, that's what a budget is.
Yeah, it is about $400 billion.
$500 billion more, right?
About that.
Isn't it a fact that since 2019 until today, I'm not including the extra $500 billion that y'all want to spend, since 2019 through today, U.S. population has increased 1.8%, and the federal government's budget is up 55%. Isn't that a fact? Are my numbers right?
I don't know those numbers.
You don't know? You never looked at that?
I don't have those numbers.
Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, my understanding is that just to pay the interest is nearing $1 trillion a year. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. That, with the nonpartisan CBO projects that the federal government will spend over $10 trillion on interest alone in the next 10 years. It is totally amazing.
Before we do one single solitary thing with a tax dollar, we got to come up with 1,000 billions. 1,000 billions just to pay the interest.
Good way to put it, over 10 years. That's exactly right. And, that's per year. And, Paul, that's one of the reasons that, I have reintroduced the balanced budget amendment resolution, and that's a constitutional amendment to just force the president and Congress to get our fiscal house in order. We just cannot afford any more of Joe Biden. And the facts are pretty clear here of the interest and what just the interest is going to take. But I just can't imagine no one even wanting to have the conversation of a balanced budget. That's pretty much insane, because we've got to be a good steward of this nation's tax dollars. And no one even wants to have the conversation other than the Republicans. The Republicans definitely want to have that. But we've got to get things under control, because when we have these natural disasters like we did over the weekend that are totally unexpected, we've got to be able to address that and have it prepared in the budget, because you're going to have it. But definitely we'll continue to do that. I've done that since I have been here, as introduced balanced budget amendment resolution.
He proposed last Thursday, his budget last Thursday, I think it was last Thursday, the Biden budget came in at $6.8 trillion, $500 billion in new taxes, I think is what we just heard, but $6.8 trillion budget plan. And it is just a plethora of giveaways in there, and social programs and things such as that. And it looks like the military may suffer from that also.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. We have to be prepared. And like in 2022, the U.S. government spent 8% of the budget, roughly $3,055 per household on just interest payment. And, you've got to back up and look at the basic fundamentals of economics is what you've got to do.
Well, our economics are not looking that good.
Yeah. We right now we are just so saturated with this storm, and, it hits so many areas. And before my time runs out, I want to make sure that I can get disasterassistance.gov. That is the website, and our 1-800-621-3362, but disasterassistance.gov, because it truly has just consumed all of us since the storm has come through. And, like I said, I was up there Saturday, but I will be on the ground in Amory Monday. But Silver City, Belzona, Montgomery County, so many places that are out there. And Senator Jean Shaheen is from New Hampshire, former governor.
Yeah.
She was in Oxford, and she said her husband's law class, she got her law degree from Ole Miss. She attended Ole Miss while her husband was in law school. But she said his watch went off during the night, and she said, Cindy, we're from New Hampshire, and she said, I saw it said take cover immediately, and she said I was waking him up, and she said, I can't imagine what you guys go through, and because she said, I think it missed us by 10 miles, and I said, yeah, Amy's probably about 10 miles away, but we've got so many areas that we've got to concentrate on right now, but I certainly wanted to get that website out there. You can go to my website. It's hydesmith.senate.gov. I've got all the information up there to assist these people. Mm-hmm. But I did want to make sure before my time ran out that's there, because I will be back in state and back on the ground next week trying to just recover from this.
You got it.
Your guest, Hank Burdine, and former friend that farms up there, Paul Hollis, took me around Saturday morning. And, just so much information. And, of course, Paul lives in Rolling Fork.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason I was there. I had, folks to set me up that I knew I could travel. But I will be, hope to get to Montgomery County and just make sure that we're taking care of our state right now. But here in the nation's capital, we have so many issues that we're dealing with, but the budget out of control spending, just like a faucet that is running and no one wants to even.
Well, I don't know if we can take another 2 years of this, and somewhere down the line, we've the people who are not speaking up on the left, it's going to affect them as much as people on the right. So they better start speaking up. Senator, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it very much. I know you got to go, so thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.